Before we get into the chilling details of the new autopsy reports, we have to look back at how we got here. From the Vegas ghost vanishing in Nevada to the 17-hour phone blackout in Illinois, Dr. Michael McKee thought he had performed the perfect procedure. But a pigeon-toed walk and a stolen license plate were the first cracks in a mask that is finally beginning to slip. This is the story of the 900-mile marathon to murder. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. The tragedy began on the morning of December 30th, 2025, in the quiet Wineland Park neighborhood of Columbus, Ohio. Dr. Spencer Teep, a beloved 33-year-old dentist, failed to show up for work. Known for his punctuality and dedication to his patients, his absence immediately raised alarms. When co-workers couldn't reach his wife, 33-year-old Monique Teep, a devoted stay-at-home mother, a family friend went to the home to check on them. Inside the modern townhouse, the friend made a horrific discovery. Spencer and Monique were found dead in their second-floor master bedroom. In a miracle that has haunted the community, the couple's two young children, aged 4 and 1, were found physically unharmed inside the home. They had been left alone with their deceased parents for hours. Initial investigations were stymied by a lack of forced entry and the fact that neighbors heard nothing. However, Columbus homicide detectives quickly pivoted to surveillance. They recovered footage of a person of interest moving through the alleyway behind the Teep home between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. The figure was dressed in dark, tactical clothing, but the most striking detail was his pigeon-toed gait. This unique physical signature, toes pointing inward while walking, immediately drew the attention of those who knew Monique's past. Family members pointed detectives toward one man, her ex-husband, Dr. Michael David McKee. Dr. Michael McKee was not a typical suspect. A highly successful vascular surgeon who had spent 15 years in medical training, McKee lived a life of luxury in a Chicago penthouse and worked at OSF St. Anthony Medical Center in Rockford, Illinois. However, beneath the professional veneer was a man with a Vegas ghost reputation. During the investigation, it was revealed that McKee had worked in Las Vegas, where he was the subject of a malpractice lawsuit. He had allegedly vanished, providing fake addresses to avoid being served legal papers, a tactic that earned him his nickname. His marriage to Monique had been brief, 2015 to 2017, and, on paper, an amicable incompatibility divorce. But the reality was far darker. As detectives dug into McKee's movements, they uncovered what they call the 900-mile marathon. Evidence suggests that on the night of the murders, McKee drove from Rockford, Illinois to Columbus and back, a 14-hour round trip. To avoid detection, he allegedly utilized stolen license plates from Ohio and Arizona, switching them throughout the journey to blind the highway cameras. The most damning digital evidence came from McKee's cell phone. While the murders were being committed 450 miles away, his phone sat motionless at his workplace in Illinois. For 17 consecutive hours, the device showed zero activity. Investigators argue this was a ghost alibi, an intentional attempt to use his phone's location to prove he never left the state. On January 9, 2026, federal agents and Columbus detectives swarmed the parking lot of OSF St. Anthony Medical Center. They arrested McKee as he left his shift and seized his silver SUV. Inside the vehicle, they found fresh scrape marks on the window where a temporary tag had been hastily removed. A subsequent search of McKee's Chicago penthouse yielded a cache of firearms. Among them was a 9mm handgun that police say provided a preliminary ballistic link to the shell casings found at the crime scene. The presence of a silencer specification in the indictment further suggested that McKee had used his surgical intellect to plan a silent execution that wouldn't alert the neighbors or the couple's children. The investigation took an even more sinister turn with the release of the unsealed affidavit. Detectives discovered that New Year's Eve was not McKee's first visit to the Teep home. On December 6, 2025, while Spencer and Monique were in Indianapolis for a football game, McKee was caught on camera prowling the curtilage of their property. This dry run proved that the murders were not a crime of passion, but a long-term tactical mission. It was also revealed that Monique had been terrified of McKee for years. Witnesses alleged a history of strangulation and forced sex during their marriage, and McKee had reportedly once told her, I will find you and buy the house right next to you. You will always be my wife." Following his extradition to Ohio, McKee's defense was taken over by Diane Menashe, one of the most formidable criminal defense attorneys in the country. Menashe is famous for her impossible win in the Dr. William Husel case, where she beat 14 counts of murder. At McKee's arraignment, Menashe made the strategic move to waive bond, keeping the state's evidence out of the public record for as long as possible. She is expected to launch a full-scale assault on the circumstantial nature of the video evidence and the reliability of the ballistic links. Throughout every court appearance and jail intake, Michael McKee has remained a void of emotion. Labeled by experts as stone-faced, he has shown no remorse, no grief, and no anger. He follows every command with clinical detachment. To the prosecution, this is the face of a sociopathic killer. To the defense, it is the face of a man in shock. Now WL focus shifts to the newly released autopsy reports, which prove that the surgical hit was actually an act of high-volume overkill, involving 16 shots and a level of violence that changed this case forever. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. For weeks, the public narrative surrounding the deaths of Dr. Spencer Teep and Monique Teep was one of precision. We were told a surgeon was the lead suspect, and we assumed a clinical, quiet execution. But on February 3, 2026, the Franklin County Coroner's Office released the official autopsy reports, and they shattered the image of a surgical hit. This wasn't a calculated removal. It was an explosion of pure, unadulterated rage. According to the documents, the couple was shot a staggering 16 times. The level of overkill found in that second-floor bedroom in Wineland Park is rarely seen in professional hit scenarios. Spencer Teep, a beloved local dentist, was shot 7 times. The report describes wounds to his head, neck, trunk, and hands. He was found in his bed, wearing his wedding ring, a symbol of the life he built that Michael McKee allegedly wanted to erase. Monique Teep suffered an even more brutal end, struck by 9 bullets. She was shot in the cheek, the chest, the stomach, and multiple times in her arms and hands. These defensive wounds tell a story of a woman who likely woke up to the sound of her husband being murdered and spent her final seconds trying to shield her body from a hail of lead. In the latest updates from Law and Crime, ballistics experts have begun to explain how these 16 shots could have been fired without alert. The silencer specification in McKee's indictment is the forensic key. A suppressed 9mm handgun doesn't just muffle the sound. It leaves a mechanical fingerprint on every shell casing. Retired Detective Commander Will Farlar explains that shell casings are like fingerprints for a weapon. When the firing pin strikes the primer and the ejector flings the spent brass onto the floor, it leaves unique indentations. Columbus police recovered a significant amount of shell brass from the bedroom floor. These casings have already provided a preliminary link to a 9mm handgun seized from McKee's Chicago penthouse during a January search. For the prosecution, this is the smoking gun. If the tool marks on the brass in Columbus match the weapon found in McKee's bedside drawer in Chicago, the 900-mile round trip ceases to be a theory and becomes a verified scientific fact. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of the 16 shots is the location. The Teeps lived in a row of modern townhomes where walls are shared and noise usually travels freely. Yet, no one called 911 in the early hours of December 30th. This confirms that the shooter didn't just bring a gun. He brought a high-end suppression device. The killer stood in that room, methodically emptying a magazine into 2 sleeping people, while their 1- and 4-year-old children slept in the next room. The lack of acoustic evidence is, in itself, evidence of the shooter's high-level planning. It proves this wasn't a crime of passion that happened to involve a gun. It was an execution that required the procurement of illegal tactical gear. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button. While the world initially focused on the timeline of December 30th, the unsealed affidavit has revealed that the Vegas ghost Michael McKee was haunting Columbus long before the trigger was pulled. On December 6, 2025, while Spencer and Monique were 175 miles away in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game, a predator was in their backyard. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood captured a figure, who police have identified as McKee, entering the curtilage of the Teep home. In legal terms, the curtilage is the most private area surrounding a house, including side yards and porches. McKee wasn't just driving by, he was on foot. He was seen prowling the alleyway behind the house for several hours, studying the garage entrance and the layout of the second floor. This was his reconnaissance mission. He was checking for camera blind spots and light cycles. To the prosecution, this is the definitive proof of aggravated murder with prior calculation and design. He didn't just want them dead. He spent weeks engineering the perfect environment for their demise. The most chilling human detail of the December 6 stalking is Monique's reaction. Friends at the football game reported that she became deeply upset regarding her ex-husband during the game and left the stadium early to return to her hotel. According to the affidavit, Spencer told friends that Monique was distressed about something involving Michael McKee. Did he send her a photo of her own house while she was away? Did he call her to say, "I'm closer than you think"? We don't have the digital messages yet, but the timing is undeniable. While Monique sat in an Indianapolis hotel room, terrified of her past, her ex-husband was allegedly standing in the dark behind her current home. This wasn't just a physical stalking. It was a campaign of psychological torture. An identifiable witness told detectives that McKee once told Monique, "I could kill you at any time. I will buy the house right next to you. You will always be my wife." He didn't want her back. He wanted her under his control, even if that meant in a grave. The footage of Michael McKee being processed into the Franklin County Jail on January 23rd has become the defining image of this case. He is seen walking with a calm, clinical detachment that experts say is consistent with a sociopathic personality. He follows every command, changes into his jail slides, and stares forward with a flat effect. There is no remorse in his eyes, only a cold, robotic compliance. This is the man who allegedly drove 900 miles, used stolen plates, and fired 16 shots into a couple he once considered family. As his attorney, Diane Minashi, prepares to battle the state, she faces a defendant who seems entirely unfazed by the mountain of evidence against him. But as the digital noose of highway cameras and ballistic fingerprints tightens, the surgical precision Michael McKee prided himself on may be the very thing that seals his fate for life. And as always, you've been watching True Crime Story Vault, where every story is told with facts, empathy, and respect for those who can no longer speak for themselves. For more true crime stories like this, hit the subscribe button and comment your thoughts below. Until next time, remember, the truth is never buried.